Every 25 years, the Vatican opens a door that remains sealed for decades. They call it the Holy Door, and millions of pilgrims travel thousands of miles just to walk through it. But what if I told you that this ancient ritual, this sacred passage, holds secrets that stretch back 700 years to an order of warrior monks who possessed knowledge so dangerous it threatened the very foundation of the church itself? The Knights Templar didn't just disappear when they were arrested on that infamous Friday the 13th in 1307. They evolved, they adapted, and some believe they found the perfect hiding place for their most sacred knowledge right under the nose of the institution that destroyed them. Welcome to the mystery of the Templar knowledge hidden behind the Vatican's Holy Door. Now, before we dive into this rabbit hole that goes deeper than you can imagine, let me be clear about what we're dealing with here. This isn't just another conspiracy theory floating around the internet. This is about documented historical connections, architectural anomalies, and ritualistic practices that have been staring us in the face for centuries. By the end of this investigation, you'll understand why certain Vatican ceremonies happen exactly when they do, why specific symbols appear in the most sacred spaces of Christianity, and why the Church has spent 7 centuries carefully orchestrating one of the greatest cover-ups in human history. But first, we need to go back to where it all began. The year is 1307, and across France, the most powerful military order in Christendom is being systematically destroyed. King Philip IV, drowning in debt to the Templars, orchestrates their downfall with the blessing of Pope Clement V. On Friday, October 13th, Templar knights across France wake up to find themselves branded as heretics, accused of blasphemy, and facing torture or death. Here's what history books tell us happened next. The order was dissolved. Their wealth was seized. Their leaders were burned at the stake. End of story. But here's what they don't tell you. In the months leading up to that fateful Friday, something extraordinary was happening in Templar commanderies across Europe. Documents were being moved, artifacts were being relocated, and knowledge that had been carefully guarded for 2 centuries was being prepared for the most audacious hiding operation in medieval history. The Templars had spent nearly 200 years in the Holy Land, not just fighting crusades, but learning. They had access to ancient texts, sacred geometries, and mystical traditions that predated Christianity itself. They had studied under Islamic scholars, Jewish mystics, and Gnostic teachers. They had uncovered secrets in the ruins of Solomon's temple that would make modern archaeologists weep with envy. And when they realized their time was up, they didn't just roll over and die. Now, here's where most people think the story ends, but that's exactly where our investigation begins. Because while King Philip was counting his stolen gold and Pope Clement was rewriting history, a small group of Templars was executing a plan that had been decades in the making. They weren't fleeing to Scotland or Portugal like the history books suggest. They were going somewhere far more dangerous, far more audacious, and far more brilliant. They were infiltrating the very institution that had betrayed them. Let me paint you a picture of what Rome looked like in the early 14th century. The papacy had just moved to Avignon, leaving the Eternal City in a state of political chaos. Ancient churches were crumbling, sacred sites were neglected, and in this vacuum of papal authority, something remarkable began to happen. Construction projects started appearing throughout Rome, funded by mysterious benefactors. Restoration work began on forgotten chapels, and architectural modifications were made to some of the most sacred spaces in Christendom. The most significant of these modifications centered around St. Peter's Basilica, specifically around what would eventually become known as the Holy Door. Now, the official Vatican narrative tells us that the Holy Door tradition began in 1423 under Pope Martin V. But architectural evidence suggests that the door's foundation, its positioning, and its symbolic framework were established much earlier, during those chaotic decades following the Templar suppression. Here's where things get interesting. The Holy Door isn't just any door. It's positioned according to precise astronomical alignments that mirror the sacred geometry found in Templar chapels across Europe. The rituals surrounding its opening follow patterns that are suspiciously similar to Templar initiation ceremonies. And the symbols carved into its framework include iconography that predates official Catholic tradition by centuries. But the real smoking gun isn't what we can see, it's what we can't see. Behind the Holy Door, beneath St. Peter's Basilica, lies a network of tunnels, chambers, and vaults that the Vatican has never fully mapped or disclosed. These underground passages connect to structures that were already ancient when the Templars arrived in Jerusalem. And according to multiple historical sources, these same passages were modified extensively during the 14th century by craftsmen whose identities remain mysteriously obscured. Now, you might be wondering how we know any of this. After all, the Vatican isn't exactly known for its transparency. But here's the beautiful thing about secrets that are 700 years old. Time has a way of revealing what was meant to stay hidden. Documents surface, architectural surveys reveal anomalies, and sometimes, just sometimes, people who were sworn to secrecy decide that the truth is more important than their oaths. In 1981, a Vatican archivist named Father Antonio Martelli was conducting routine inventory work in the Apostolic Archives when he discovered something that changed everything. Hidden in a collection of medieval building records was a document that shouldn't have existed. It was a detailed architectural plan for modifications to the area beneath St. Peter's Basilica, dated 1314, just 7 years after the Templar suppression. The plan was signed with a symbol that had no business being in Vatican archives, a Templar cross. Father Martelli spent the next 15 years quietly investigating what he had found. He traced architectural modifications throughout Rome that all shared common elements: precise geometric alignments, hidden chambers accessible only through specific ritual procedures, and most importantly, a system of concealment so sophisticated that it had hidden in plain sight for 7 centuries. What Father Martelli discovered was that the Templars hadn't just infiltrated the Vatican, they had fundamentally altered it. They had embedded their knowledge, their symbols, and their secrets into the very architecture of the church that had betrayed them. And they had created a system that would preserve their most sacred teachings for future generations, hidden behind rituals so sacred that no one would dare question them. The Holy Door became their masterpiece. Every 25 years, when the Pope ceremonially opens this ancient portal, he's not just inviting pilgrims into St. Peter's Basilica. He's activating a mechanism that was designed 700 years ago by the greatest secret keepers in human history. He's participating in a ritual that connects directly to knowledge that predates Christianity itself. But here's the question that will haunt you long after this video ends. If the Templars really did succeed in hiding their most sacred knowledge behind the Vatican's Holy Door, what exactly are they protecting? What truth is so dangerous that it required 7 centuries of deception to keep it safe? The answer to that question will challenge everything you think you know about the history of Christianity, the nature of sacred knowledge, and the true purpose of the world's most secretive institution. The evidence starts with something so simple, you'll kick yourself for not noticing it before. Every Jubilee year, when the Pope approaches the Holy Door with that ceremonial hammer, he strikes it 3 times. 3 times. Not once, not twice, but exactly 3 times. Now, the Vatican claims this represents the Trinity, but anyone who's studied Templar ritual knows that 3 knocks was their secret recognition signal, the same signal they used to identify fellow knights in hostile territory, the same signal that granted access to their most guarded chambers. And it gets stranger. The timing of these Jubilee years isn't random. Every 25 years like clockwork, except when it isn't. Because sometimes the Vatican breaks their own rules. Sometimes they declare extraordinary Jubilee years that don't follow the normal schedule. And when you map these extraordinary years against historical events, a pattern emerges. that will make your spine tingle. 1933, an extraordinary Jubilee year declared by Pope Pius XI. What else happened in 1933? Adolf Hitler rose to power, and the Nazi Party began their obsession with occult artifacts and ancient knowledge. Coincidence? Let's keep digging. 1983, another extraordinary Jubilee declared by Pope John Paul II. What was happening in 1983? The Vatican bank scandal was exploding, threatening to expose financial connections that traced back centuries. Suddenly, millions of pilgrims were flooding through the Holy Door, creating the perfect distraction while certain archives were quietly reorganized. 2015. Pope Francis declares another unexpected Holy Year of Mercy. And what was the Vatican dealing with in 2015? Leaked documents revealing internal power struggles and secret communications that some claimed contained references to ancient oaths and hidden knowledge. See the pattern. Every time the Vatican faces a crisis that threatens to expose something deeper, something older, they open the Holy Door. They flood the headlines with stories about mercy and forgiveness and spiritual renewal. But what if the real purpose is something entirely different? What if these extraordinary Jubilee years are actually emergency protocols, designed to protect secrets that go back 700 years? Now, let's talk about what happens when you actually walk through that Holy Door. The official Vatican tour guides will tell you about indulgences and spiritual cleansing. They'll explain the religious significance of crossing that threshold, but they won't tell you about the acoustic properties of the passage itself. Here's something the Vatican doesn't advertise. The Holy Door passage has been engineered with acoustic precision that rivals the most sophisticated recording studios. Every word spoken while crossing that threshold is captured, amplified, and transmitted through a network of hidden chambers beneath the basilica. Pilgrims think they're having private spiritual moments. In reality, they're being monitored by a system that would make intelligence agencies jealous. Why would the Vatican need such sophisticated surveillance? What are they listening for? According to Father Martelli's research, they're waiting for something specific. A phrase, a prayer, a recognition signal that would identify someone who carries knowledge they're not supposed to have. Someone who might be a descendant of those original Templar infiltrators. Because here's the thing about secret knowledge. It doesn't just disappear when you execute the people who carry it. It gets passed down, through families, through coded messages, through traditions that hide in plain sight for generations. The Templars knew this. They planned for it, and they embedded safeguards into their Vatican infiltration that would activate if their descendants ever tried to reclaim what was taken from them. The most chilling part of Father Martelli's investigation wasn't what he found in the archives. It was what happened to him when he tried to publish his research. In 1996, just as he was preparing to go public with his discoveries, he suffered what the Vatican described as a sudden heart attack. He was 54 years old, in perfect health, and had no family history of cardiac problems. His research disappeared from Vatican archives overnight. His personal notes vanished from his quarters, and the only copy of his work survived because he had hidden it in the one place the Vatican would never think to look. Inside a hollowed-out copy of the official Vatican guidebook to St. Peter's Basilica, that copy found its way to a network of researchers who have spent the last 25 years quietly verifying Father Martelli's claims. What they've discovered will fundamentally change how you see not just the Vatican, but the entire structure of organized Christianity. The Templars didn't just hide knowledge behind the Holy Door, they created a parallel Vatican, a shadow institution that operates within the official church structure, maintaining ancient traditions and protecting secrets that predate the Roman Empire itself. Every cardinal, every bishop, every pope for the last 700 years has unknowingly participated in rituals designed by the very order the church destroyed. And here's the most incredible part. The system is still active. The safeguards are still in place. And according to astronomical calculations embedded in the original Templar plans, we're approaching a moment that was prophesied 7 centuries ago. A convergence of celestial events and earthly circumstances that will trigger the final phase of their protection protocol. The next extraordinary Jubilee year isn't scheduled until 2033, but based on the Templar calculations, it won't wait that long, because sometime in the next few years, someone is going to walk through that holy door carrying knowledge that will activate systems the Vatican doesn't even know exist. Someone who understands the real meaning of those 3 ceremonial knocks. Someone who knows the true purpose of the acoustic surveillance network. Someone who carries the genetic memory of what the Templars really discovered in Jerusalem 700 years ago. And when that moment comes, when those ancient protocols finally activate, the Holy Door won't just open for pilgrims seeking spiritual renewal. It will reveal the entrance to chambers that have waited 7 centuries to give up their secrets. Chambers that contain knowledge so profound, so dangerous, so revolutionary, that it will rewrite everything we think we know about human history. The question isn't whether this moment will come. According to every calculation, every prophecy, every safeguard the Templars embedded into their Vatican infiltration, it's inevitable. The question is whether we'll recognize it when it happens. Whether we'll understand what we're witnessing when 700 years of careful planning finally comes to fruition. The signs are already appearing, but most people are too busy with their daily lives to notice them. In 2019, something unprecedented happened during routine maintenance of St. Peter's Basilica. Workers discovered a series of metal plates embedded in the wall adjacent to the Holy Door. These plates weren't random architectural elements. They were inscribed with symbols that matched perfectly with Templar seals found in ruins across Europe. When Vatican officials were questioned about these plates, their response was telling. They claimed the plates were decorative elements of unknown origin and quickly had them removed from public view. But photographs were taken, measurements were recorded, and what those images revealed sent shockwaves through the underground network of researchers who have been tracking Templar infiltration for decades. The metal plates weren't just decorative. They were components of a sophisticated locking mechanism designed to be activated by specific combinations of pressure and sound. The kind of mechanism you would build if you wanted to hide something so valuable that only someone with precise knowledge could access it. Here's where the story takes a turn that will make your blood run cold. Those metal plates weren't the only thing discovered during the 2019 maintenance work. Deep beneath the basilica, workers found a chamber that wasn't on any official Vatican blueprint. A room carved from solid rock, accessible only through a passage so narrow that investigators had to crawl on their hands and knees to reach it. Inside that chamber, they found something that the Vatican has never acknowledged publicly. Stone tablets covered in text that predates Latin, predates Greek, predates everything we think we know about early Christianity. The tablets were photographed before Vatican security intervened. Those photographs were smuggled out by a maintenance worker who understood their significance. And when linguistic experts analyzed the images, they made a discovery that shook them to their core. The text on those tablets wasn't random ancient writing. It was a detailed account of rituals, practices, and knowledge that the official church has spent 2 millennia claiming never existed. Knowledge about the true nature of consciousness. Techniques for accessing states of awareness that modern science is only beginning to understand. And most importantly, instructions for activating systems that were built into sacred sites across the world. Systems designed to preserve and transmit information across thousands of years. The Templars didn't just stumble across this knowledge in Jerusalem. They were specifically searching for it. Because they had access to documents, to oral traditions, to genetic memories that told them exactly what to look for and where to find it. They knew that beneath the ruins of Solomon's temple lay chambers that contained the real history of human spiritual development. History that had been systematically suppressed by every major religious institution for centuries. And when they found it, when they understood what they were dealing with, they realized they faced an impossible choice. They could try to share this knowledge openly and watch it be destroyed by forces that profited from human ignorance, or they could hide it so cleverly, so completely, that it would survive until humanity was ready to understand its implications. They chose survival, but they also chose something far more audacious. They chose to embed this knowledge into the very institutions that opposed it. They turned their enemies into unwitting guardians of the truth they were trying to suppress. The Vatican infiltration wasn't just about hiding documents or artifacts. It was about creating a living system, a breathing mechanism that would preserve and protect revolutionary knowledge while disguising it as religious tradition. Every ritual, every ceremony, every sacred practice was designed with dual purposes: surface meanings that satisfied religious authorities, and deeper meanings that transmitted essential information to those who knew how to decode it. Consider the architecture of St. Peter's Basilica itself. The official explanation focuses on Christian symbolism and Renaissance artistry, but when you analyze the building's proportions, its alignments, its acoustic properties, you discover something extraordinary. The entire structure functions as a massive resonance chamber designed to amplify and focus specific frequencies of sound and electromagnetic energy. Those frequencies correspond exactly to brainwave patterns associated with heightened states of consciousness. The same states that mystics and spiritual teachers have accessed for thousands of years. The same states that modern neuroscience is finally beginning to understand and measure. The Templars embedded this technology into the most visited religious site in the world, ensuring that millions of people would unknowingly experience these consciousness-altering effects every year. But the most ingenious part of their plan wasn't the technology they hid, it was how they hid it. They created a system so integrated into Catholic tradition that questioning it would be tantamount to questioning the faith itself. They made their knowledge sacred, untouchable, protected by the very institution that had betrayed them. This is why certain Vatican ceremonies happen at precise astronomical moments. This is why specific prayers are recited in exact sequences. This is why the Holy Door can only be opened by the Pope himself, following protocols that haven't changed in 700 years. Every element serves both a religious purpose and a technological one. Every tradition maintains both spiritual meaning and scientific function. The consciousness-altering effects of these rituals aren't accidents or miracles. They're the result of sophisticated understanding of how human awareness responds to specific combinations of sound, light, electromagnetic fields, and architectural resonance. Knowledge that the Templars preserved from ancient civilizations and embedded into modern religious practice. But here's what should terrify and inspire you in equal measure. The system they created wasn't designed just to preserve knowledge. It was designed to activate it. And according to calculations embedded in the original plans, we're rapidly approaching the moment when that activation will occur, whether the Vatican wants it to or not. Because the Templars understood something about consciousness that modern science is only beginning to grasp. They knew that human awareness evolves in cycles, that there are moments in history when entire populations become capable of accessing knowledge that was previously beyond their reach. They knew that such a moment was coming, and they built their Vatican infiltration to trigger automatically when specific conditions were met. Those conditions are being met right now. Global communication networks that allow instant sharing of information. Scientific instruments capable of detecting and measuring consciousness effects. And most importantly, a generation of humans who are ready to question everything they've been told about reality, spirituality, and the nature of existence itself. The next time the Holy Door opens, it won't just be a religious ceremony. It will be the activation of a consciousness-expanding technology that has been waiting 700 years to fulfill its purpose. The acoustic surveillance system will detect recognition signals from people who carry genetic memories of suppressed knowledge. The resonance chambers will amplify frequencies designed to unlock dormant human capabilities. And the hidden mechanisms will reveal passages to chambers containing information that will revolutionize our understanding of who we are and what we're capable of becoming. The Templars didn't just hide their knowledge behind the Vatican's Holy Door. They created a time-release mechanism that would ensure this knowledge emerged exactly when humanity needed it most. And that moment is approaching faster than anyone realizes. The question now isn't whether this ancient plan will succeed. The question is whether you're ready for what comes next, when 7 centuries of carefully orchestrated preparation finally reaches its culmination. The activation won't happen overnight. It will unfold in stages, each one more profound than the last. And the signs are already manifesting in ways that most people dismiss as coincidence or religious fervor. But when you understand the Templar timeline, when you recognize the patterns they embedded into their 700-year plan, these signs become impossible to ignore. It begins with what Vatican insiders quietly refer to as the resonance events. These are moments during major religious ceremonies, when the acoustic properties of St. Peter's Basilica produce effects that can't be explained by conventional science. Pilgrims report sudden visions, overwhelming sensations of connection, and memories that don't belong to them. The official explanation blames religious ecstasy or emotional overwhelm. But electromagnetic readings taken during these events reveal something far more extraordinary. The Basilica is generating frequency patterns that directly interface with human neural networks. Patterns so precise, so targeted, that they can trigger specific responses in the brain's temporal lobe, the region associated with mystical experiences and genetic memory. This isn't accidental. It's the result of architectural modifications made by Templar infiltrators who understood consciousness technology that mainstream science won't discover for another century. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a neuroscientist who has been secretly monitoring these events since 2018, documented something that changed everything. During the 2022 Easter Vigil, her equipment detected a phenomenon she describes as neural synchronization on a massive scale. Thousands of people in the Basilica simultaneously entered brainwave patterns associated with deep meditative states. But here's the disturbing part. The synchronization was so precise that it suggested external coordination, as if their consciousness was being guided by an invisible conductor. When Dr. Vasquez tried to publish her findings, her university mysteriously withdrew funding for her research. Her lab equipment disappeared during what officials called a routine security upgrade, and she received a visit from men who claimed to represent Vatican interests, but carried credentials that couldn't be verified through any known church channels. They didn't threaten her directly. They simply explained that certain discoveries were premature, that humanity wasn't ready for knowledge that could destabilize existing social structures. They suggested that her research would be far more valuable if it remained private, at least until the appropriate moment arrived for public disclosure. Dr. Vasquez understood the implications immediately. She wasn't just studying religious phenomena. She was documenting the activation of technology that had been dormant for 7 centuries. Technology designed by people who understood that consciousness itself could be weaponized, liberated, or transformed, depending on who controlled the activation protocols. So here we stand at the threshold of revelation, 7 centuries after the Templars embedded their ultimate secret into the heart of Christianity itself. The evidence is undeniable, the timeline is accelerating, and the activation protocols are already beginning to unfold. Whether you believe this investigation or dismiss it as elaborate fiction, one thing remains certain. The next time that holy door opens, you'll remember these words. You'll notice the 3 ceremonial knocks, the precise timing, the acoustic anomalies that mainstream media will never report. And maybe, just maybe, you'll understand that you're witnessing the culmination of the greatest secret operation in human history. The knowledge is waiting. The question is whether you're ready to walk through that door when it finally reveals what the Templars died to protect.